Okay, hi guys. Today we would be learning about crop production and management. You have learned that all living organisms require food. Plants can make their food themselves. Can you recall how green plants synthesize their own food? Animals, including humans, cannot make their own food. So where do animals get their food from? But first of all, why do we have to eat food? You already know that energy from the food is utilized by organisms for carrying out their various body functions, such as digestion, respiration, and excretion. We get our food from plants or animals or both. In order to provide food for a large population, regular production, proper management, and distribution is necessary. That brings us to agricultural practices. Till 10,000 BC, people were nomadic. They were wandering in groups from place to place in search of food and shelter. They ate raw fruits and vegetables and started hunting animals for food. Later, they could cultivate land and produce rice, wheat, and other food crops. Thus was born agriculture. So, moving back, when plants of the same kind are cultivated at one place on a large scale, it is called a crop. For example, crop of wheat means that all the plants grown in a field are that of wheat. You already know that crops are of different types like cereals, vegetables, and fruits. They can be classified on the basis of the season in which they grow. India is a vast country. The climatic conditions like temperature, humidity, and rainfall vary from one region to another. Accordingly, there is a rich variety of crops grown in different parts of the country. Despite this diversity, two broad cropping patterns can be identified. They are first, Kharif crops. The crops which are sown in the rainy season are called Kharif crops. The rainy season in India is generally from June to September. Examples of Kharif crops are paddy, maize, soyabean, groundnut, and cotton. Second is Rabi crops. The crops grown in the winter season from October to March are called Rabi crops. Example of Rabi crops are wheat, gram, pea, mustard, and linseed. Besides these, pulses and vegetables are grown during summer at many places. So the basic practices of crop production. Cultivation of crops involves several activities undertaken by farmers over a period of time. You may find that these activities are similar to those carried out by a gardener or even by you or your mother when you grow ornamental plants in your house. These activities or tasks are referred to as agricultural practices, which are as follows: preparation of soil, then sowing, adding manure and fertilizers, irrigation, protection from weeds, harvesting, and storage. So, the first topic is preparation of soil. The preparation of soil is the first step before growing a crop. One of the most important tasks in agriculture is to turn the soil and loosen it. This allows the roots to penetrate deep into the soil. The loose soil allows the roots to breathe easily, even when they go deep into the soil. Why does the loosening of soil allow the roots to breathe easily? The loosened soil helps in the growth of earthworms and microbes present in the soil. These organisms are friends of the farmer, and since they further turn and loosen the soil and add humus to it. But why the soil needs to be turned and loosened? You have learned in the previous classes that soil contains minerals, waters, and some living organisms. In addition, dead plants and animals get decomposed by soil organisms, which is known as humus. In this way, various nutrients in the dead organisms are released back into the soil. These nutrients are again absorbed by the plant. Since only few centimeters of the top layer of the soil supports plant growth, turning and loosening of the soil brings the nutrient-rich soil to the top so that plants can use this nutrition. Thus, turning and loosening of the soil is very important for cultivation of crops. The process of loosening and turning of the soil is called tilling or plowing. This is done by using a plough. Ploughs are made of wood or iron. If the soil is very dry, it may need watering before plowing. The plowed field may have big clumps of soil called crumbs. It is necessary to break these crumbs. Leveling the field is beneficial for sowing as well as for irrigation. Leveling of soil is done with the help of a leveler. So sometimes manure is added to the soil before tilling. This helps in proper mixing of manure with soil. The soil is moistened before sowing. Before sowing the seeds, it is necessary to break soil clumps to get better yield, as mentioned before. This is done with the help of various tools. So the main tools or agricultural implements used for this purpose are the plough, hoe and cultivator. The plough is being used since ancient times for tilling the soil, adding fertilizers to the crop, removing the weeds and turning the soil. This is made of wood and is drawn by a pair of bulls or other animals, horses and camels, but mostly you may have seen bulls. It contains a strong triangular iron strip called plough shaft. The main part of the plough is a long log of wood which is called a plough shaft. There is a handle at one end of the shaft. The other end is attached to a beam which is placed on the bull's neck. One pair of bulls and a man can easily operate the plough. The indigenous wooden plough is increasingly being replaced by iron ploughs nowadays. Next is a hoe. A hoe is a simple tool which is used for removing weeds and for loosening the soil. It has a long rod of wood or iron. A strong, broad and bent plate of iron is fixed to one of its ends and works like a blade. It is pulled by animals. Nowadays, ploughing is done by a tractor-driven cultivator. This saves labor and time. Hence, it is quickly replacing the olden methods. Next is sowing. Sowing is an important part of crop production. Before sowing, good quality, clean and healthy seeds of good variety are selected. Farmers prefer to use seeds which give high yield. So how do you do selection of seeds? Okay, let's do an activity. So take a beaker and fill half of it with water. Put a handful of wheat seeds and stir well. Wait for some time. You would see that there are some seeds which float on water. Would those be lighter or heavier than those which sink? Why would they be lighter? So the answer to this is that damaged seeds become hollow and thus are lighter. Therefore, they float on water. This is a good method for separating good healthy seeds from the damaged ones. So before moving on to sowing, the most important thing is to know about the tools used for sowing the seeds. So the traditional tools used for sowing the seed is shaped like a funnel. The seeds are filled into the funnel, passed down through 2 or 3 pipes having sharp ends. These ends pierce into the soil and place the seeds there. Next is the seed drill. So nowadays the seed drill is used for sowing with the help of tractors. This sows the seed uniformly at equal distance and depth. It ensures that the seeds get covered by the soil after sowing. So therefore saving labor. This also protects the seeds from being eaten by birds. So sowing by using a seed drill therefore saves time and labor. Appropriate distance between the seeds is also necessary to avoid overcrowding of plants. This allows plants to get sufficient sunlight, nutrients and water from the soil. At times, a few plants may have to be removed to prevent overcrowding. Next is adding manure and fertilizers. The substances which are added to the soil in form of nutrients for healthy growth of plants are called manure and fertilizers. The soil supplies mineral nutrients to the crop plants. These nutrients are essential for the growth of plants, as you all know. In certain areas, farmers grow crops after crop in the same field. The field is never left uncultivated or fallow. Imagine what happens to the nutrients. So the continuous cultivation of crops makes the soil poor in nutrients. It is also known as nutrient depletion. Therefore, farmers have to add manure to the fields to replenish the soil with nutrients. This process is called manuring. Improper or sufficient manuring results in weak plants. The manure is an organic substance obtained from the decomposition of plants or animal wastes. Farmers dump plant and animal waste in pits at open places and allow it to decompose. The decomposition is caused by some microorganisms. The decomposed matter is used as organic manure. You may already know about vermicomposting, which is carried out with the help of earthworms. The fertilizers are chemicals which are rich in particular nutrient. How are they different from manure? Fertilizers are produced in factories. Some examples of fertilizers are urea, ammonium sulfate, superphosphate, potash, NPK, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. The use of fertilizers has helped farmers to get better yield of crops such as wheat, paddy, and maize. But excessive use of fertilizers has made the soil less fertile. Fertilizers have also become a source of water pollution. Therefore, in order to maintain the fertility of soil, we have to use substitute fertilizers with organic manure to leave the field uncultivated in between two crops. The use of manure improves soil texture as well as its water retaining capacity. It replenishes the soil with nutrients. Another method of replenishing the soil with nutrients is through crop rotation. This can be done by growing different crops alternately. Earlier, farmers in northern India used to grow legumes as fodder in one season and wheat in the next season. This helped in the replenishment of the soil with nitrogen, because let's suppose one crop uses a particular nutrient for its growth, and it excretes some nutrient which may be useful for the other crop in its growth. Then the two crops are grown alternately, such that the output of one crop is taken as the input for another crop in the form of nutrients. This helps in the replenishment of soil with nitrogen. Hence, farmers are being encouraged to adopt this practice. In previous classes, you also may have learnt about Rhizobium bacteria. These are present in the nodules of roots of leguminous plants. They fix atmospheric nitrogen. So the advantages of manure is that the organic manure is considered better than fertilizers because it enhances the water holding capacity of the soil. It makes the soil porous, due to which the exchange of gases becomes easy. It increases the number of friendly microbes. It improves the texture of the soil, and it does not also cause pollution. So the differences between fertilizer and manures, I'm going to discuss about it. So about the fertilizer is a man-made inorganic salt, whereas manure is a natural substance obtained by decomposition of cattle dung and plant residues. Fertilizers are prepared in factories, whereas manure can be prepared in the fields. Fertilizer does not provide any humus to the soil, whereas manure provides a lot of humus to the soil. Fertilizers are very rich in plant nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, whereas manure is relatively less rich in plant nutrients. So the next part which comes in crop production is irrigation. So as we all know that all living beings need water to live. Water is important for proper growth and development. So for plants, water is absorbed by the roots. Along with water, minerals and fertilizers are also absorbed by the roots. Plants contain nearly 90% water. So water is essential because germination of seeds does not take place under dry conditions. Nutrients dissolved in water are transported to each part of the water. Water also protects the crop from both frost and hot air currents. To maintain the moisture of the soil for healthy crop growth, fields have to be watered regularly. The supply of water to crops at regular intervals is called irrigation. The time and frequency of irrigation varies from crop to crop, soil to soil, and season to season. In summer, the frequency of watering is high. Why? Why is it so? It is because there is an increased rate of evaporation of water from the soil and the leaves during the summer season due to intense heat. So the sources of irrigation of water are wells, tube wells, ponds, lakes, rivers, dams, and canals. So talking about the traditional method of irrigation, the water available in wells, lakes, and canals is lifted up by different methods in different regions for taking it to the fields. Cattle or human labor is used in these methods. So these methods are cheaper but very less efficient. The various traditional ways are moat or the pulley system, second chain pump, third dhekli, and fourth rahat, a lever system. Pumps are commonly used for lifting water. Diesels, biogas, electricity, and solar energy is used to run these pumps. So moving on to the modern methods of irrigation. The modern methods of irrigation help us to use water economically. The main methods are the sprinkler system. First, this system is more useful on uneven land where sufficient water is not available. The perpendicular pipes having rotating nozzles on top are joined to the main pipeline at regular intervals. When water is allowed to flow through the main pipe under pressure with the help of a pump, it escapes from the rotating nozzles. It gets sprinkled on the crop as if it is raining. Sprinkler is very useful for lawns, coffee plantation, and several other crops. Second is the drip irrigation system. In this system, the water falls drop by drop directly near the roots. So it is called drip irrigation system. It is the best technique for watering fruit plants, gardens, and trees. Water is not wasted at all. It is a boon in a region where availability of water is poor. So the next part is protection from weeds. In a field, many other undesirable plants may grow naturally along with the crop. So these undesirable plants are called weeds. The removal of weeds is called as weeding. Weeding is necessary since weeds compete with the main crop plants for water, nutrients, space, and light. Thus they affect the growth of the main crop. Some weeds interfere even in harvesting and may be poisonous for animals and human beings which consume this crop. Farmers adopt many ways to remove weeds and control their growth. Tilling before sowing of crops helps in uprooting and killing of weeds, which may then dry up and get mixed with the soil. The best time for removal of weeds is before they produce flowers and seeds. The manual removal includes physical removal of weeds by uprooting or cutting them close to the ground from time to time. This is done with the help of a khurpi. A seed drill is also used to uproot weeds. Weeds are also controlled by using certain chemicals called weedicides. They are sprayed in the fields so as to kill the weeds. However, care is taken such that these chemicals do not affect or damage the main crops. The weedicides are diluted with water to the extent required and sprayed in the fields with a sprayer. As already mentioned, the weedicides are sprayed during the vegetative growth of weeds before flowering and seed formation. Spraying of weedicides may affect the health of farmers, so they should use these chemicals very carefully. Generally, they cover their nose and mouth with a piece of cloth during spraying of these chemicals. So the next part is harvesting. Harvesting of a crop is an important task. The cutting of crop after it is mature is called as harvesting. In harvesting, crops are pulled out or cut close to the ground. It usually takes 3 to 4 months for a cereal crop to mature. Harvesting in our country is either done manually by a sickle or by a machine called as harvester. In the harvested crop, the grain seeds need to be separated from the chaff. This process is called threshing. This is carried out with the help of a machine called combine, which is in fact a harvester as well as a thresher. Farmers with small holdings of land do the separation of grain and chaff by winnowing. After 3 or 4 months of hard work, there comes a day of harvest. So, this is celebrated in different parts of the country as harvest festivals. The sight of golden fields of standing crop laden with grain fills the hearts of farmers with joy and a sense of well being. The efforts of the past season have borne fruit, and it is time to relax and enjoy a little. The period of harvest is thus of great joy and happiness in all parts of India. Men and women celebrate it with great enthusiasm. Special festivals associated with the harvest seasons are Pongal, Baisakhi, Holi, Diwali, Nabanya, and Bihu. So next comes the storage of the harvested crops. Storage of produce is important because if the harvested grains are to be kept for a longer time, they should be kept safe from moisture, insects, rats, and microorganisms. Harvested grains have more moisture. If freshly harvested grains or seeds are stored without drying, they may get spoiled or attacked by organisms, making them unfit for use or for germination. Hence, before storing them, the grains are properly dried in the sun to reduce the moisture in them. This prevents the attack by insects, pests, bacteria, and fungi. Farmers store grains in jute bags or metallic bins. However, large-scale storage of grains is done in silos and granaries to protect them from pests like rats and insects. Dried neem leaves are used for storing food grains at home. For storing large quantities of grains in big godowns, specific chemical treatments are required to protect them from pests and microorganisms. We have just seen that the process of crop production involves a number of steps like selection of seeds, sowing, etc. Similarly, animals reared at home or in farms have to be provided with proper food, shelter, and care. When this is done on a large scale, it is known as animal husbandry. So, summarizing about today's lecture, first, in order to provide food to our growing population, we need to adapt certain agricultural practices. Second, same kind of plants cultivated at a place constitute a crop. Third, in India, crops can be broadly categorized into two types based on seasons, Rabi and Kharif crops. Fourth, it is necessary to prepare soil by tilling and leveling. Plows and levelers are used for this purpose. Fifth, sowing of seeds at appropriate depths and distances gives good yield. Good variety of seeds are sown after selection of healthy seeds. Sowing is done by seed drills. Sixth, soil needs replenishment and enrichment through the use of organic manure and fertilizers. Use of chemical fertilizers has increased tremendously with introduction of new crop varieties. Seventh, supply of water to crops at appropriate intervals is called irrigation. Eighth, weeding involves removal of unwanted and uncultivated plants called weeds. Ninth, harvesting is the cutting of the mature crop manually or by machines. 10th, separation of the grains from the chaff is called as threshing. 11. Proper storage of grains is necessary to protect them from pests and microorganisms. 12th, food is also obtained from animals for which animals are reared. This is called animal husbandry. So some questions about today's class. Select the uh, answer the following. The same kind of plants grown and cultivated on a large scale at a place are called. Second, the first step before growing crops is dash of the soil. Third, damaged seeds would dash on the top of water. Fourth, for growing a crop, sufficient sunlight and dash from the soil are essential. Next question. Give two examples of Kharif crops and Rabi crops. Next question. Explain how fertilizers are different from manure. Next question. What is irrigation and describe two methods of irrigation which conserve water. Next question. What are weeds and how can we control them? Okay guys, so this is all from my side about crop production and management. Thank you.